to Ideas All Day, a podcast where we, not experts, talk about topics and things and stuff, and then pile those top things and topics and stuff into a good ideas pile, a crappy ideas pile, and the neutral nobody cares and really doesn't feel like making a decision pile. So let's do some intros and see how everyone's doing today. Kate, why don't you start us off today? How you doing?
I'm doing well. I'm just pondering, would I rather fight a duck the size of a horse or 100 horses the size of a duck?
Nope. You want to fight Gary Oldman?
No. Oh, no. Oh, no. Give me the duck the size of a horse.
No.
I think
you ever fight a normal sized duck?
I have walked through a gaggle of geese with goslings and came out unscathed. I am not afraid.
Yeah, that was a miracle right there.
Yeah.
I was gonna say it's like that's a miracle there.
Literally,
I'll take the horses the size of ducks any day.
Literally, a stranger came up to me after I did that, and they were like, "That was the bravest thing I've ever seen." But yeah, no, I'm doing good. Thanks for asking.
You're very welcome. How about you, Ajax? How you doing today?
Lovely. Now my day is better now that I get to see you guys.
What a lot. You're a nice liar. Or a glutton for punishment.
Both.
And how are you, Alex, on this fine podcasting day?
I am doing wonderful. I'm doing absolutely wonderful today.
That's amazing. How often does this happen?
Never. I'm actually just lying. I am miserable. Life is pain.
So
yeah, it's good times.
But speaking of lying and life is pain, this week's episode, we're discussing ideas about interviews.
Because interviews usually have air horns.
That's an idea.
Yes.
If you go to an interview and there's an air horn, you fight for that job. You get that job.
That could be a question that you ask is there an air horn available?
Yes.
I would be on the other side. I was like, I don't want to deal with an air horn every single day. No one likes to deal with an air horn normally. Why would I want to do it every single day?
Well, you handle it pretty well once a week. So just saying.
Your weekly air horning.
Yeah.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
I'm talking about real air horn. Not your fake air horn.
Well, since you have so many opinions, Alex, about air horns and interviews, why don't you go first with your ideas?
Sure, I would love to give you my ideas and air horns and air horn related accessories. I mean, on interviews, I guess. Yeah, sure. Let me just find my other notes. Oh, here they are. All right, now that I've got my ideas ready. Well, for my first idea is actually kind of a basic one, and it's being honest. I know a lot of people tell you to go into an interview with the mindset to get the job, which is correct. I actually agree with that. But don't lie, because you're just going to dig yourself into a bigger hole if you do get the job. You're going to waste your own time. You're going to make yourself look like a jerk and even potentially ruin other opportunities down the road. I would say be honest with your interviewer. Answer the questions like you really would. Because if this is going to be your future, if this is going to be where you might spend the next 20 years, you want to get it off on the right foot and make sure for both of you that you're the right person for the position. I mean, especially in today's climate, there's a lot of people looking for jobs, and you might as well take the time to make sure that you're a right fit for the job. And being honest is a great tool for that, because there's no need to do the whole fake it till you make it nonsense. I hate that phrase. I hate that idea. Be yourself, because guess what? That's who they should get to know. That's who they should get to appreciate. And it lets you start off on the right footing from day one. So that's idea number one. Idea number two, don't forget to research the company ahead of time. Not every interviewer will ask these questions, but sometimes it's a good idea to know what type of company you're interviewing for. I can't say how many times I've asked somebody, what do you know about the company I work for during interview? And they have absolutely no idea. They just know what kind of work I do, but nothing other than that. And, it's not a deal breaker necessarily, but it just shows that you're taking the time to attempt to do some work. attempt to learn more about, again, where you might spend the next 20, 30 years. It just shows a nice initiative. And I will say I have had an interview where it was for a part-time position in retail, and 1 hour of the interview was just about my knowledge of the company. And it was a part-time, nearly minimum wage position. And that was only hour 1 of 3 for that interview. It was a 3-hour interview. I'm not even joking. It was ridiculous. They actually offered me the position, even though it was probably one of the worst interviews I ever had. And I turned them down because I did not want to deal with any company that makes me stay for 3 hours on a part-time interview or a part-time job. Oy, oy, oy. So yeah, know what you're getting to ahead of time. Number 3, don't be afraid to say no to your interviewer. You want to get up on the right foot. And if something that you're not willing to do, not able to do, or in some situations, they may ask you a question and if you would do X, Y, or Z in a certain situation. And if it's something you're not comfortable with, don't be afraid to say no. I know when I conduct interviews, I actually ask questions hoping to get a no sometimes. Where is there a line that they're willing to cross in an inappropriate situation? Or hopefully they say no to that. I want them to say no, and I want them to say, hey, don't do that. I don't feel comfortable with this. You shouldn't be asking me that. And that's the right answer. Sometimes you have to stand up for your beliefs. Sometimes you have to stand up for what's right for you and for the company. Sometimes, even if a supervisor is telling you something that you're not comfortable with. Number 4, to really, again, show a lot of initiative and show that you want to really appreciate the person that's interviewing you and potentially your future boss, bring in a body pillow with their picture on it. Not only does it show that how much you care about them, but to give you some security during the interview because they can see how much you care about them. And my last idea, if all else fails and the interview might be going downhill, but you really want this job and you really think you've got what it takes, sometimes you just have to challenge your potential boss to a rap battle. Because if anything, you can beat him him or her in a rap battle, that's going to show that you can dominate in an adverse situation, and it shows that, and they'll respect you for it. And if they can respect you, even if you may not see him on paper like the right person position, you're going to be after that. And those are my ideas.
Thanks, Alex.
You're welcome.
I'm gonna unpack this first.
What are you unpacking?
Your ideas.
I don't see any boxes.
First idea, being honest. I'm going to put this in the ideas pile simply because I have been burnt before by being honest in an interview. There was a point in time in my life where I was unemployed for almost a year, and it was not a good scene for me. Went into a lot of debt. I was basically paying rent with a credit card, not paying off the credit card, maxing out my credit card. It was not a fun time. And I was trying to get jobs anywhere and everywhere, like Walmart, Target, Payless, grocery stores, like anything, just to kind of stem the bleeding of all of my spending because I didn't have any money coming in and only money going out. So on my resume, it showed I had a bachelor's, and so I was overqualified for a lot of the positions. So being honest kind of screwed me over. But yes, you don't want to go into an interview and say something you're not, or say you have goals that you don't. I'm putting this in the ideas pile because this kind of conflicts with one of my ideas later on in my ideas. So ideas pile. Idea number 2. Research the company beforehand. Yes, totally a good ideas pile. If you are interested in the job, you're interested in working for the company, you should know who you're working for before you even step into that interview. If you never heard of the company before and you just kind of went through and just emailed a bunch of people your resume or some headhunter found you, if you're going to take the time to go to the interview, you could take the time to review the website and their About Us page. So it's always good to research the company. So yes, good ideas pile. You kind of stole that idea from me, damn you. Don't be afraid to say no. I'm going to put this in the ideas pile leaning towards good And the only reason I'm hesitant to put it fully into good is because sometimes people rise to challenges. So if someone's like, well, you're going to have to learn Excel. Are you comfortable with learning a new computer program? And you're not, and you say no, well, now someone else is leading in that position because they're totally psyched to learn Excel. So in certain situations, I could see saying no as a detriment. But for big things like, hey, we have a lot of people's credit card information. If we gave you the credit card information and if you went down to the bus depot and met a guy in a trench coat and gave him that information and he gave you money, would you bring that back for us and do the exchange for us? That's a good time to say no. But I would say don't be afraid of new challenges. Kind of, be brave and say yes and sink or swim kind of thing. So
well, that's not the intention of what I was saying.
Okay.
Because a lot of people will say, well,
yes, just to
say
yes.
yes to say yes.
Yes.
And that's I don't want people like to say yes to say yes. Like, again, in that example, if we said, would you go do something that's like not just illegal, but you're being told to do it.
Yeah.
And it's something that is obviously wrong or think that I've had people in interviews say yes to that.
Yeah, that's...
And again, that's what I mean. If because there's either want a job or think it's the right thing to say, even if they don't really feel that way. It's I hate to say it goes back to the honesty stuff. Yeah. But it's really don't be afraid to say no in something where you don't feel comfortable with it.
Yeah. I'm still going to put this in the ideas
that's
pile.
Fine.
I'm leaning towards good because this does conflict with one of my ideas later on.
You're not working for me.
That's for sure. Idea number 4, bringing a body pillow of the boss's face on it. This is going in the bad ideas pile. Because one, if you came into the interview with just the body pillow, that's just weird in itself. Then with the boss's photo, that's just creepy then. And no one wants to work with a creepy person. So yeah. Bad ideas pile for me.
I don't know. If someone walked into an interview with my face on a body pillow, I mean, come on. What's wrong with that? Especially if you got the full length body pillow. So I'm like stretching out.
And that's distracting in the interview. Like wait until the first week of school. Yeah. The first week of work. The first week of work. Then you can bring in the body pillow and be like, I just like to feel close to my boss.
Yeah. What if it's one of those ones where it's got the two sides or one side's like, professional and the other side's a little sexy?
Yeah, no, bad idea. Bad idea. And then number 5, I like the caveat, like, the interview's going poor and this is like a last ditch effort. Challenge them to a rap battle. Funny enough, this sort of happened to me. Not a rap battle, but I had an interviewee and we were like, what are some of your hobbies? What are some of the things you like to do? And he was saying he was a beatboxer. And so it's like, oh, I don't know. Can you beatbox better than me? And then it turned into like a beatboxy kind of battle. So like, that was fun. I had a lot of fun. It kind of made the interview fun and light and thing. But, like if you're doing horrible in an interview, you don't feel like you have it in the bag, you feel like you have 0 chances, go for it. Worst case scenario, you're a fun story for them to tell someone else and you have this, badge to wear like, well, no wonder I didn't get the job. All of them they can't handle my mad rap skills. So there. Good ideas pile for me on that one. And those are my pilings.
What about you, Ajax? How do you feel about a rap battle? And
I have to do your idea number 1 first. I can't go right into rap battle. That's just against everything that we stand for.
I get it. The podcast hasn't gone downhill just yet.
No, that's how you know when the podcast has gone downhill is if I rank your 5th one first. I mean, what I should, so I should just make it go downhill.
Yeah.
Yeah. No. All right. So for your first idea of being honest, not lying, it'll help you get off on the right foot. I agree with you on this one. I'm gonna put this one in the good ideas pile just because like even if it's like too much information, if they're honest, if it's something else, if they're honest, you're knowing more about the person prior to, so you'll have some better idea of what you're getting on a more day-to-day basis as well. And I'd rather have some idea of who I know I'm working with prior to, or make the decision whether or not I could work with that person based on what they were saying. So I agree. Good ideas, pal, for being honest. For your second idea, to research the company ahead of time, I will also put this in the good ideas pile because I put this also in as one of my ideas as well. You take a look at what you're getting into. Very important situation right there.
Make sure it's not like doesn't have any mob ties, things like that.
I mean, that
or unless that's what you're looking for.
To get into it. I have no problems with that. If that's just a bonus.
Yeah.
Who needs a bonus when you're there in the mob ties in there?
Then they get better bonuses. That's what I'm saying.
And then for your idea number 3 of not being afraid to say no to your interviewer, no, I'm going to put this one in the ideas pile just because since I've conducted interviews in the past, I don't think I've ever been asked something like that before where I had to like think about where like, ooh, do I really want to do that? Wait, that's a part of the job description.
Well, we're talking things out, not necessarily outside the job description. Again, there's the job description, which if you're coming to the interview, you should be able to do all the things within the job description. Exactly. That isn't something you learn on the job in the first place. Because again, with what I do, there's concerns for misuse. I'm going to say inventory in general, because just like Kate, we deal with a lot of personal information. There's a lot of risk, and there's a lot of people's security and a lot of trust they have in us to make sure we're not doing things we're not supposed to. And then I want to make sure that person isn't going to feel bullied into doing something, or if it's told to do something that they don't feel comfortable with or isn't good for the customers themselves or the company.
Well, I mean, okay.
That's what it's going towards.
When you put it that way, like I'm going to definitely put this one, ideas leaning towards good, like heavily for that one.
We're not talking.
It adds to the honesty factor in there too.
It's really not meant to be, the description says I should be able to lift 50 pounds. I can only lift 40. So I'm not talking about that.
Start benching.
Yeah, that's something completely different. We're not talking about anything to deal with, are you able to do the job or willing to learn? That's something that's part of the honesty. This is, can you be willing to say no when presented with those kind of ethical questions, or other types of things?
More for like a position where there is sort of that sensitive information as well. Yeah. Like for me, it's more like, can you rip things out of the ground? All right.
Yeah. Yes or no? Yes.
If you say no to that, then I'm going to be looking for somebody else.
Exactly. And that's just that. Yeah, but that's part of the job description. That's the stuff where they shouldn't be at the interview process at that point. They should be at the phone interview and weeded out at that point. No pun intended.
All right. So for your idea number 4 of bringing in a body pillow with their picture on it, I was trying to figure out how I would feel if I was presented with a body pillow during an interview. And especially if it was like on a front side, regular side, and the other side is the sexy side. I don't know how I'd feel. I mean, I feel like if it was a cardboard cutout, I might be able to have a place to put it, but I don't have a place to put a body pillow.
What do you mean?
In my office?
You put it on your chair because you're sitting on it.
There's not enough room for me and a body pillow on a chair.
You need a bigger chair.
I don't need a body pillow. So
you need a bigger chair.
If they should have did their research. If they were going to bring me a body pillow, they should know whether or not I have the space for a body pillow or not. Like, if you're going to be stalking me that hard, you better know if I want a body pillow or not.
Also, there was no saying that they were giving you the body pillow. They're just bringing it to the interview.
Oh, they're just bringing it?
Yeah.
I'm not gifted with it?
No, I mean, they might be able to get you one, but no, it's not your body pillow. It's their body pillow.
I'll just put that in the ideas pile, just because, I mean, if it's just theirs.
Yeah.
Oh my.
Just showing it off.
You're like, look what I made.
Exactly. Look,
weirdo.
It looks just like you.
And I'm like, it looks nothing like me. It's perfectly fine. And for your 5th idea of challenging your potential boss to a rap battle, I mean, that could be highly entertaining, at least, especially if it was on the resume to start. If they just started with just rapping and they expect me to rap, then I'd be like, no. I'd say no to them for that one. But if it was on the resume, I would be like, okay, rap battle, partake, go. I mean, that could be highly entertaining. Yeah. All right. So I put that one in the good ideas pile, especially if you're a rap battle artist. Come on, show your skills during the interview. Make me believe. I'll tell you that I am not a rap battle-lista, so do not expect any bar spittings. Got none. And those are my pilings.
Well, thanks, Ajax.
You're welcome, Alex.
Okay, why don't you give us your ideas next?
Sure. I kind of went a little wild on this because I'm an overachiever. So I did ideas for both the interviewer and the interviewee. But let's start with the ideas for the interviewer. Idea number one, as an interviewer, you should really be honest with the candidate about the job expectations, the job duties, and the culture of the company. The last thing you want to do is hire someone under false pretenses. They get there and realize it's the most toxic place ever or something they truly weren't expecting. And then you have to go through the whole hiring process again. It is super, super expensive for companies to hire people, especially those with high turnover. So you definitely want to weed out people right off the bat if they're not going to be happy in the job or in company culture. Idea number two, be prepared. Make sure you have the person's resume handy. I went into an interview for a personal assistant job, and the guy was just so focused, be very tech savvy, and have everything on his tablet. This is back when tablets first came out. So this was like him trying to impress me with all of his futuristic gadgets. And he's like, oh, I need to find your resume. Hold on. I'm like, well, I have a copy right here. I have a paper copy right in my hand. I brought just for you. And he's like, no, I have it on my tablet here. I have it. Hold on. And he finally finds it. And he's like, all right, tell me about your work at McDonald's. I never worked at McDonald's. Had the wrong Kate. So be prepared. Idea number three for interviewers, group interviews. This I found very helpful weeding out the last few contenders of a position I was hiring for. We had 4 candidates that looked great on paper, and we brought them in one-on-one, and out of the 4, we came down to 2, and the 2 that we had interviewed so great. They were great one-on-one. We wanted to talk to them one more time, and we're running out of time. We really needed a body. So we're like, well, let's kill 2 birds with one stone. Let's bring them both in. And it was eye-opening because the one person who we thought was this rock star did not do well. And all the positives this person had, it was fake it until you make it kind of thing. And it wasn't until they were head to head with someone else who was actually made it that it didn't come to light. So group interviews. Idea number 4. Some of the best interviews I've been on have been interviews in which the interviewer asked super creative questions. And the reason for that is everybody who is serious about the position will prepare. They will prepare 3 strengths. They will prepare 3 weaknesses. They will research the company. They will say what they think you want to hear. By having different out-of-the-box questions, it kind of really helps with really figuring out who that person is. And it also kind of brings a conversational atmosphere to the interview. So the person kind of warms up a little better. They're more willing to talk more freely. And sometimes when they talk more freely, you learn a lot more about that person. Now, let's get into the mindset of the interviewee, things that an interviewee should do, ideas for them. And for that, the first one on that, which is now idea 5, dress the part. If you're really serious about a position and you really want that position, if it's a managerial position, you should be dressing as a manager would. If it's an entry level, at least khakis, collared shirt, skirt, dress shirt. You do not want to go in sweatpants and a tank top. You want to look the part. And not saying that I've ever interviewed someone who was in jeans and a t-shirt and dismissed them. But the problem is when you get down to the last few candidates and you have the person that showed up in a power suit who has the same skill set as the person who showed up in jeans and a t-shirt, that might be the deciding factor on who gets the job. So dress the part. It might be the thing that nudges you over the finish line. Idea number 6, research the company and the position. You should know who you're working for, and you should know the position that you're applying for. If you're just applying for everything and you get a call back and it's a sales position, you want to be ready for sales questions. If it's a warehouse position, then you should be ready to answer warehouse questions. If you go into a sales interview, they're not going to ask you if you can lift 50 pounds. If you go into a warehouse interview, they're going to ask you if you can lift 50 pounds. So know the company, know the position. Idea number 7. This is huge for anyone who's an interviewee. At some point in time, they're going to ask you, do you have any questions? Ask questions. You want to ask questions about the company. If the interviewer did not talk about the company's culture and the environment, you want to ask questions about that. You want to ask specifically questions about who your supervisor is and how they're like, because that gives the interviewer the mind frame that you already think you have the job. If you're already asking about how your boss is. So yes, ask questions. Questions are super important to ask. It means that you're listening, means that you're interested, means you're engaged. You want to ask questions. Idea number 8, you want to be friendly and you want to be able to converse with your interviewer. But remember, they are hearing everything you say. Loose lips sink ships. So I almost lost a position because of this, because something I said was misconstrued by my immediate boss. At the time of the interview, I was training for a marathon. And per previous experience with drug testing, if you have a diluted specimen, it's considered a failure and you have failed your drug test. So I was in the midst of training for a marathon. And if anyone has ever trained for a marathon, one thing you do is super hydrate. You want that nice pale pee. So I was drinking a significant amount of water, enough that would dilute my specimen. So during the interview, they asked, oh, do you have any questions? I was like, yes, I'm training for a marathon. Do you guys do drug testing? And they're like, yes, we do drug testing. I'm like, okay, would I be notified prior to the drug testing, or is it like random surprise drug testing? They're like, oh, you would be notified. I was like, great. Okay, I can stop drinking water the day before the drug test and not have a diluted specimen. And then the other question they asked me was like, is there anything on your wish list? Like if we could provide something else for this on this job, is there anything else you would want? And I said, oh, I would love to work a 4-day week in which I work 10 hours shifts for 4 days and then I'm off 3 days. They're like, oh, okay, we'll see what we can do. We'll work on it. Luckily, there was no other competition for that job. And I did get the job, luckily. But my boss used to tease me so much because he told me once I left that interview, he turned to his bosses and says, well, she doesn't want to take drug tests and she only wants to work 4 days a week. Do we really want to hire her? So be careful what you say in your interview. It could be misconstrued. It could be taken out of context. It could be taken in full context. Don't think the interviewer is your friend. You can't tell him everything or her everything. Just stick to what you can do to get the job. And that leads me to my last idea, which is lie. As an interviewee, if you're applying for a job and the job is an entry-level position and you were a sales executive, but your company has since been bankrupt and has gone out of business and you don't have a job and there's no executive sales jobs anywhere, and they ask you in the interview, hey, why do you want to work this entry-level job? You don't want to say, because there's nothing else out there and I'm hoping to work my way up through the company. Because if it's an entry-level job, they want you to just work the entry-level job. So lie and say, look, I was an executive salesperson. It was a lot of stress. It was a lot for me to handle. I was feeling burnout. I'm really looking forward to doing something a little bit less executive. I'm looking for just to get my hands dirty and to just come in and pound out a 9-to-5 kind of job. Is that true? Probably not, but you need a job and they're hiring. If at the end of the day, you're just looking to put food on your plate, take care of your bills, and you're willing to do anything to do that, then you're going to have to lie in this interview. And it's not like you don't know what the job is. You know what the job is. You know what the opportunities are. You're just stuck in a situation that, hey, I'm not going to get out of this unless if I lie. If you want the job, you know what they want to hear. Are you a hard worker? Yes. Are you dedicated to this company? Yes. Are you willing to work overtime? Yes. Are you willing to work weekends, nights, mornings, 6 shifts in a row? Yes, yes, yes. Now, with that said, after you have lied, you kind of have to do what you said. Yeah, you're not happy about working weekends, but guess what? You have a job now. So lie with the asterisks, knowing you're going to be held accountable to what you said. And those were my 9 ideas. Ajax, why don't you pile me first?
Why, certainly, Kate. I'll be glad to pile you. So for your first idea of within the interviewer spectrum, the interviewer to be honest. Well, I mean, I think this will be in the good ideas pile for that one. If they don't know what their culture is like, that's a red flag to be like, do I actually even want to work for this company? That would be good information to have as an interviewee. For your second idea of being prepared, making sure you have the person's resume handy, that definitely is an important aspect. I know whenever I'm getting ready to give an interview as the interviewer, I'm pretty much, reading over the resume, and I've already even ranked my resumes in the order of how I think that this is my top choice. I'll pre-rank them prior to, and then I'll see whether or not my original thoughts and feelings were matched up to the actual interview itself. So definitely, it's an important part to know that when you're going in as well. And it's also interesting when you're interviewing somebody and you sort of you feel you can get their vibe from what their resume was. And it's an interesting, process.
Yeah. And you can tell sometimes when you're like, oh, someone had help writing this resume because it does not sync up. And then you can tell oh, this person really sucks at writing a resume because meeting this person in person is like a totally different beast. So yeah, interview process is so important. The resume gets you in the front door, but the interview is what gets you the job.
Yeah. So, good idea for knowing the resume. Group interviews. I've never been, for your third idea of group interviews, I've never been a part of a group interview. And I can see that's like a high anxiety situation. So you can totally see how somebody who might have done well in the one-on-one interview might as well, their mentality might have shifted in terms of having a group interview. So right now, I'm going to put this on the ideas pile just because I know it's a thing, but as somebody that's going into it, I would want to know prior to that if I was going to be going into a group interview. If it wasn't something that was surprise group interview with all the other candidates right there, I'd be like,
yeah, that's how we kind of did it too. We blindsided that poor person. Yeah, it was kind of evil. It was.
Because I've had interviews where I've had multiple people from departments all at once sitting there and interviewing me. That made sense because they would coming from all the different questions, coming from different angles that you might be involved in. Again, I've never been a part of a group interview, which it just seems very highly stressful. So I'm going to stick with ideas pile for this one, just because I know I would definitely want to have knowledge base prior to. And that might even make me not want to even interview as well. If it's if the interview process is kind of funky, I might be a wuss when it comes to that, especially if I have other jobs that I've, more excited about. I'll be like, okay, that's some stress that I don't necessarily want to go through. So, you know what? Ideas pile. So for your fourth idea, super creative questions, out of the box questions to figure out who the person is. I'm going to put this one in the ideas pile, leaning towards good, just because I wouldn't want to get a lot of times my interviews that I've had I like to keep them on time. I don't want to keep my time over. I don't want to keep somebody else's time to go longer. If I can get the interview done shorter in a shorter amount of time, fantastic. Having the fluffy stuff in there with a book and stuff. You get to know their personality. But if I was asked what's my favorite book, I'd be like, anything by Stephen King. And then I would pretty much be the end all. I'd be like, got nothing else to add right there. For right now, this is going to be in the ideas pile, leaning towards good, depending on the question, because I wouldn't want to derail the whole conversation based on a creative question so you don't get thrown off completely on what your task is at hand, which is to interview to find the right candidate. So for your fifth idea of dressing the part, dress as the manager, look the part, I'm going to agree with you. This is in the good ideas pile with me. I'm going to add, if you are not sure what the required clothing is for the position, to even just give them a call and ask them, what should you wear? Especially if like you're in a position where, like in the work that I'm in, where you're going outside all the time, I wouldn't want somebody wearing heels and some sort of business suit where you're just going to get muddy and I'm just showing you the grounds. Like, look at this pile of logs over here. Here's an axe. How do you feel about that?
I want to be on your interview. Like, I want to be that person. Be like, what? Axe, logs? Let's go.
Meanwhile, you're just getting stuck in the ground with your heels.
While I'm wearing heels and a skirt, I would still rock the shit out of that axe.
Good. I would appreciate that. Thank you. So for your sixth idea of researching the company, of course, good ideas pile. Seventh idea of having questions. Depends on the questions. I'm going to put this one on the ideas pile, leaning towards good, because depending on the question itself, sometimes the questions that you ask, you have to make sure that they're not going to be questions that were already answered during the interview, like where you're not showing that you weren't listening, or if
wait, what'd you say?
I was going to say, like, if you're asking a question like where you're repeating something during the interview, what? Oh, shut your face hole. Asshole.
Oh, that took way too long for you to figure out.
Way over the head.
It's gone. It flew away. All right. Did I pile it?
I think you said it was the best idea you ever heard.
All right, I'll take that. For your eighth idea of being friendly, don't say everything in the world. Be careful what you say during the interview. Don't think the interviewer is your friend. Yeah, they're not your friend. Well, they might be later. You never know. But yeah, good ideas. Your ninth idea, to lie. My biggest thing is that you have to remember what you lied about. That's the hardest part for me to put for that. I would just put this in the ideas pile, just leaning towards bad, because I would forget that I lied during the interview, especially if it was like a stressful situation and I gave the answer and they're like later on, oh yeah, I lied about that.
So if you're going to lie, you got to, one, remember the lie, and two, be careful about that. I think there's like an old Buddhist saying, if you never lie, you never have to remember anything, because you always have to remember your lies, but you don't have to remember your truths, because your truths will always be truths.
You'll remember those a lot better.
Yeah. Wow. But like the lies I'm talking about, like, hey, would you be willing to work nights? And if you're doing anything to get this job, you're willing to work nights, but you don't like working nights. Or, hey, we're very loose here with our dress code. Is that something you're comfortable with? And if you're like a power suit wearer and you're like, oh yeah, no, totally fine with that, and then you're showing up wearing your power suit, that might be a tell that you were lying in your interview. And that's the thing. If you get caught in one lie, everything you said in that interview and everything you said since can be considered a lie or discredited. So yes, if you're going to lie, you better be good at it, because
yeah, I suck at lying. So yeah. I wouldn't remember shit.
That is a big caveat to remember. So good point, Ajax. Way to go.
And those are my pilings.
Thank you for your pilings. Alex, do you want to go through these 9 ideas real quick? Thanks. Appreciate it.
I'll try my best. And thank you for the opportunity to come here today and talk to you.
The pleasure's all mine.
Yeah, of course.
Lies.
All right. So for your first idea, be honest for the interview, to be honest about expectations and culture. Yeah, of course it's a good idea, because they're being honest. And that's an important thing during an interview. We'll get back to that again, though. But yes, this is a straight up good idea. Let the person know what they're getting into, what's expected of them, and even what the company's going to be like, to make sure, even if they're great at the job, that they're actually happy being there, and that, what to come into, just to make sure they're the right fit. Number 2, prepare for the interview. I'm going to put this in the ideas pile, because sometimes I just like to be a little off the cuff sometimes when I do my interviews. Yes, I do prepare. I get my questions ready, go over the resume one last time, but sometimes I don't always go and use every question I've got on my little sheet of questions. Sometimes I just go, hey, I let the interview go where it wants to if it feels it's something I want to delve more deep into. Preparing for it's great and everything, but I don't want to be so stiff that I can't kind of diverge a little bit as long as it stays on topic. All right, so ideas pile. Number 3, group interview. I'm going to put this in the ideas going towards bad. When you spring it on someone without telling them, that's a dick move. Let's be honest, that's a dick move.
It was a dick move. I'll agree.
It's a dick move. I mean, if you tell the person they're going into a group interview, it better because they're hiring for multiple positions where they just don't have a lot of time and they need to get it done quickly. And that was my first interview I ever had, was a group interview. It was for working in a freaking Denny's to become a dishwasher, but they were hiring for dishwashers, servers, cooks, all in the same interview. It was basically, they just wanted to get to know you and they hired everybody.
How big of a group was it?
It was like 10 people.
Okay, so I applied for a Jack Black dealing position. There was 120 people that applied. We went in groups of 20, and they would
hold on. Was that Jack Black or Blackjack?
Blackjack. There's a black. It was not Jack Black.
I want to know Jack Black dealing.
I was like, I would have been in a Jack Black
group. Listen, Jack Black was hiring a personal assistant, and there's 120 of us. That makes me sound so much cooler. I think I'm going to keep that. I'm sorry, my dyslexia is showing. Blackjack position, and there was over 120 of us. We were doing about groups of 20 to 15, and what they were doing is you went from big groups to smaller groups to smaller groups until they finally picked who they wanted. From there was 20 of us in the training class, and then from the training class, if you passed the training class, then you actually got onto the floor, and that's only if your licensing came in. So it was insane.
So but you're also probably hiring for multiple positions, and with that many people, I get it. You don't have time to do one-on-ones like that. If you need to film sooner rather than later, I get that. But for a normal position, I don't think group interviews are going to give you anything more or less than actually, I think they'll give you less than, because you're not going to really get to know the person or the people there as well. Again, your example is very poignant. It very much says that sometimes you will get more out of it than you expect. But again, I think that's an exception rather than the rule. It's going in the ideas pile. For number 4, ask creative questions. Straight to the ideas going towards bad, because I like the idea of them, you're warming them up, get them to feel a little bit at ease, which I do during some of my interviews, which is what kind of your interests, what do you do outside of work? How's your family if you have one? That kind of stuff. I don't keep it creative, but I do keep it personal. But if you're asking weird-ass questions, like how many ducks that you would fight that look like a horse or whatever, it can completely derail, not only for the interview itself, because you're kind of wasting time if it's really not pertinent to the interview when you have maybe a half an hour to an hour at most. It also may make you look like some kind of weirdo to the interviewee. Unless there's reasons for it, I don't really agree with it. So again, ideas going towards bad for that one. For your next idea, number 5, dressing the part. I'm going to put this in good ideas pile. Honestly, what they say you should do is not just dress the part, dress for the position you want to get, even if it's later down the road. Don't be afraid to wear a suit and a suit jacket, even if it's something where you just wear a dress shirt at work. Don't be afraid to go above that step. But yeah, dress the part, good idea. Number 6, reach the company. This sounds a very similar idea to something I had said earlier, I think. So I'm going to put this in the good ideas pile. I mean, it just sounds very similar. Number 7, ask questions. Yeah, I mean, this is good. I would say ideas going towards good, because sometimes you may just, especially in interviews, you can be nervous. You may not come up with anything. I can't tell you how many times I've had interviews and they just say, not really. We've covered X, Y, and Z, answered a lot of my questions. I've had that happen, and it's perfectly understandable to me.
For anyone out there, if you get into that situation, always ask the interviewer, what do you really like about the company? What are your favorite things about working for XYZ company? That's a good question, because regardless of what they said in the interview, they probably didn't talk about why they love the company. So there you go.
And if they did, then you weren't paying attention.
Exactly.
Ideas going towards good. Sometimes you just got to be okay with, as an interview, it's like sometimes you just won't have questions. All right. For number 8, be careful what you say, aka be friendly, but don't overshare. Yes, this is a good idea. I've seen this derail interviews very quickly, going from this is the person that we're going to hire to no, thank you. Have a great day. It was nice talking to you. So yes, just be careful. Make it on topic. If you think it's getting a little too personal and you just notice that you're start sharing, or this person you're doing the interviews might become a coworker, and it's good to be friendly, but sometimes you have to know boundaries. So yeah, this one's going in the good ideas pile. And then we come to number 9, lying. I think we all know this is going straight in the freaking bad ideas pile. I mean, you even in your previous thing even talked about the Buddhist monk and it was a bad thing.
I didn't say it was a bad thing.
Yes.
You just have to have a good memory.
Yeah. That's so bad. I understand from your example where it's someone in a desperate situation. I get it, but it's still a bad idea. Again, when you're desperate, you got to do what you got to do, but I'm still going to call this a bad idea. I don't care. Because at some point it's going to come that you lied for whatever reason, and you'll have wasted possibly yours, possibly the company's time, and it might be a negative all around. It's going in the bad ideas pile.
Thank you, Alex, for your pilings. I do appreciate that.
You're welcome.
Ajax, why don't you give us your ideas?
Gladly. I will. These have not been said before at all throughout today, so welcome to these brand new ideas, like my first idea of dressing for the job that you will be doing. And of course, if you don't know what that will entail, please ask before you do. So that was my first idea. For my second idea, timeliness. Okay, so for this one, as an interviewer, what I've liked about Zoom recently, because I've been doing a lot of Zoom interviews, is where you can actually just go in on time, like at the time of the interview, and just log in at the time of the interview. I love that because the interview is scheduled at a specific time. You can have it at a specific time. If you are showing up 15 minutes early and then they come to the front desk and give me a call and say, hey, your interview that's here in 15 minutes is here already, then I'm already thrown off of my time. So I'm thinking okay, I would like to have an interview to start on time. And also, if you're going to be late, please notify me that you're going to be late prior to as well, just so there's a heads up. And because, when you schedule your day pretty much by the time and the tasks that you have to do, every minute is precious. So having all the timeliness is important for at least me in an interview situation. Idea number 3, reading the job description, looking over their website, familiarizing yourself with the organization that you're applying to work with. Having some sort of idea, knowing who you're going to be doing it and what they're actually doing within the community and what the organization is all about, having some sense of what that is. And actually, if you'd want to be a part of it as well. So that my fourth idea is knowing your skill sets and also knowing your areas of improvements. It's often said as strengths and weaknesses, but you're always working on and trying to improve yourself. At least for me, I'm trying to do that as well. But also knowing that you might not as good qualities in some areas might be beneficial just to say those out loud. So, that they have some idea of what projects you can be working on, or if there's some area that they could. Idea number 4, knowing your skill sets and also knowing areas of improvement. For idea number 5 are asking the questions. A lot of times when I'm interviewing, there's always time at the end for questions. And it's actually rare that I usually get questions after conducting an interview. I wouldn't mind if there are questions. And there's more back and forth. There's some interaction between the interviewer and interviewee, and some questions. When I've been interviewing for positions on the spot, I might have not had questions as well. But I was thinking about what are some questions that you could possibly ask? So the ones I were coming up with, what will my potential workspace include? Will it include a computer? I don't know. Depending on the organization you're working for, you don't know what their technological qualities are. So hey, if they don't say that during an interview, it might be a question to ask. Will you have the ability to work from home? That's big nowadays, especially with COVID. And having that capability to work from home might put your mindset in one job over another if you have multiple positions that you're looking at. something that I'm always interested in is like, what is my growth potential within the organization? Especially if you're going to be there for 20 years, you would want to have to work, you want to work towards something. You want to work towards not only the growth of organization, but the growth and progress of yourself, which is always something that, I'm looking for, is somebody that was like, I don't want to just stay in this one little pigeonhole. I want to better myself within an organization if that is available. And also, what does the typical day look like in this position? Asking that kind of question might tell you how the interviewer is attached to that position. They might give you more of a better picture of what you'll be doing every day. Or if they're not quite sure and they don't have a good sense of what the job actually entails, that will be truth. That will help the interviewee make the decision whether or not they would like to be a part of that. So yeah, those are my ideas. Alex, can you pile me, please?
All right, I guess I'll pile you. I'm not going to be happy about it, though.
Please don't. I wish for nothing but that.
Yes, of course. All right, so for your first idea of dressing for a job, sounds very similar to another one. This one's going straight in the bad ideas pile because, you don't even know what the job might be entailing. What if it's like a job to be a mascot? How can you dress for that job? You got to be prepared for any situation. And if you don't have your mascot costume ready, obviously you're not prepared. So if you're saying it's a good idea to dress for the part and you can't, it's a bad idea right there.
True.
So yeah, bad idea. 100%.
Thanks.
Number 2, be on time. Bad idea. Don't be on time. Don't be early because they got to know that your time is important. They're there to see you. It's not the other way around. They're the ones looking for the person to hire. So your time is the important one. So yeah, if you're like 10 minutes late, that just shows that you're important. You might have been on another interview. You got competing companies looking for you. So yeah, bad idea. You got to be ready for whenever they show up. Do your research. Sounds very similar. No, God, don't do that. Don't ever do that. This is just stupid. You got to go in blind. You got to, as the old saying goes, fake it till you make it, which I completely agree with. And it is just one of those things where you just got to assume that whatever that job is, you know exactly what it's about because you can do it. And you got to tell them that you can do it. It is, you've already got the job. This is a formality, really. Don't worry about knowing anything or doing anything on time. Show up and be confident and just act like you got that job already because probably you do. Number 4, know your skill sets and areas of improvement. You don't need to worry about that because you've already got all the skills that you need. So it doesn't matter. They have to adapt to you. It's not the other way around. Number 5, ask questions. This is a bad idea. Don't ask questions because you've already got the job. Your only question, if you're going to ask one, is when's my first day? And that's it. By the way, on a side note, someone has actually done that in an interview, assuming they've got the job and sat down and said, when's my first day? So yeah. So other than that question, don't ask any. Bad idea.
Thanks for your pilings. Great.
You're welcome. Better luck next time now.
Thanks, Alex. Kate, you want to pile my crappy ideas?
I would love to discuss your exquisite, wonderful ideas, Ajax. Idea number 1, dress the part. Dress for the job that you want, not the one that you're going for. Yeah, great idea. Timeliness. So where you had your pro with Zoom, where you can just hop on a call at the time and have the interviewer there, I had the opposite problem. We had time zone situation with ours. So we scheduled the time for Eastern Standard. The person got their invite for Central. So they showed up an hour late, which almost cost them the position, but they were able to email us and be like, where are you guys? I'm at the interview. And so we were able to reschedule. Also, we are not sponsored by Zoom, but Zoom, if you want us to sponsor you, feel free to contact us at ideasalldaypodcast@gmail.com. But yes, I like being early. I feel like if you're not early, you're late. I have shown up to interviews an hour early, but not gone in and said to the receptionist that I was there. My second to last job I've had was at a business center. And sometimes those business centers get like, it's a multi-suite company. And depending on the size and the shape, 302 could be on the second floor, right side, behind a curvature that if you haven't been there before, you're going to miss it. So I got into interviews an hour early, scoped out where I needed to be, figured out how to get there, and then sit in my car and do Sudoku until it's time for me to go in 5 minutes early. So yes, if you're not early, you're late. Yes, great idea. Reading the job description, going on the website, getting a feel for the company. Yes, these are all good ideas. Knowing your skill set and improvement. I hate this question in an interview because everybody tries to make their negative sound like a positive. No one's going to say, oh, I have a really hard time being on time to work. And, I have a hard time not sleeping at my desk. Like, no one wants to say that. Everybody's going to be like, well, one of the biggest problems I have is, sometimes I just work too hard. I just really,
so much.
I just want to keep working. When it's 5 o'clock, I don't want to leave. And I know that's a problem I have, but I am working on it, or I care too much. Sometimes helping these customers, I feel like I'm personally invested and I really want to do what's best for them. And sometimes that's detrimental to me because I carry that with like BS. Like,
that
come
stuff
on.
is annoying.
That's so bullshit.
Whenever I do an interview, I always try to steer away from that question. I rather ask questions like the position I'm currently in now. You need a lot of organization. You need to be able to keep track of 1,000 things at once. So one of my questions I ask is, how do you keep, personally, how do you keep organized? Like, how do you keep track of things that are happening, during work? Because personally, my life is disorganized as it can be. And all my organization skills are set and used at work. So I'd rather ask a question that's like pertinent to the job compared to be like, oh, what are 3 things you can improve on? Well, I'm about 100 pounds overweight, so I could work on that. Doesn't apply to the job. It's waste of question. So I want to put this in the ideas pile.
Yeah, I also don't think that I don't like framing it as the skill, like the strengths and weaknesses too. Like I think that,
I hate that.
That phrasing itself is it's harder to come up with those things when you put it in that framing. Like that's why I was thinking skill set, like knowing what you can do really well and knowing, hey, what
isn't your cup of tea?
Yeah, like, do you prefer email communication as to phone call communication, or like?
Which is funny because I kind of use this to my improvement. I had a very toxic supervisor do annual review on me, and she's like, "Well, what are some of the things that you like doing?" And I was like, "I love being on the phone. I love talking to all of our customers. I love helping people." And she's like, "Oh, what don't you like as much?" I'm like, "I hate doing little projects where I'm not on the phone and I just have to do my work and it's so boring." Knowing that she was that kind of person who would use that information against me. So whenever she was pissed off at me, which was at least once a week, she would try to punish me by taking me off the phones and making me do projects. So it's good to know. It's good to know what you like doing, what you don't like doing. But I just hate that question. So you definitely want to be prepared for that question. You want to be careful in how you answer it. You don't want to sound like you're blowing smoke up anyone's ass. So ideas pile.
Blow smoke up all the asses.
Speaking of blowing smoke up asses and being careful what you say, asking questions. I'm going to put this in the ideas pile, leaning towards good, because you have to be careful what questions you ask. Because sometimes if you have any questions about the job and you start asking, well, what's the PTO like? Do you guys get holiday bonuses? Do you guys pay for lunches? You don't want to sound like you're looking for handouts or the only thing you care about is bonuses and time off. You want to sound
lunches.
Like you're excited.
I mean, I would like lunches.
No, and that's the thing. Like when I interviewed for my last job, the interviewer brought that up. They're like, hey, we do lunches here like once a month or every so often. And we have a holiday party. Like they brought that up. That's fine. But if you're done with the interview, no one said anything about anything, and you're like, yeah, what's your lateness policy? Like, how many latenesses can I have until I'm in trouble? And is that worse than being an absence? Or you want to make sure you're asking questions that paints you in a good light, that doesn't make it sound like you don't want to work. So ideas leaning towards good. You want to ask questions, you want to be engaged, you want to know more information about the place you want to work, but you also don't want to ask stupid questions. So yeah, those were my pilings.
Thanks, Kate.
No, thank you, Ajax.
No, thank you. No, you know what, Alex, thank you.
Yes, thank me.
And you know what? While we're thanking people, we should thank our listeners.
Thanks, listeners.
Thank you so much for everyone for listening today. Mwah.
Thank you for listening. You can catch us on Spotify, Pandora, iTunes, Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, Anchor. We have a YouTube channel that has playlists. We have our Facebook page. If you need to get in contact with us, you can contact us at our email at ideasallDaypodcast@gmail.com, or you can reach out to us at our Instagram at ideasallDaypodcast. But yeah, thanks for listening.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Good luck on your interview. You can do it. I believe in you.
Be with you.